Three things should be obvious on your P&L: money flowing in, money flowing out, and money remaining. And if any of those is blurred, you don't just lose insight, you lose the ability to operate from facts. Feelings without facts does not a healthy firm make.
Welcome to the Law Firm Owner Podcast, powered by Velocity Work. This is the work that creates velocity.
Welcome to the Law Firm Owner Podcast. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. Today, we're talking about visibility and clarity that should come from your P&L. Money should flow into your firm, of course. Money should flow out of your firm, of course. And there should be money left over. If any one of those isn't clearly visible on your P&L, you're going to feel unsettled. Not necessarily because something is wrong, but because that's what vagueness does. When you can't clearly see what flowed in, what flowed out, and what remained, your mind will fill in the blanks, and almost always it fills them in wrong. Most law firm owners have a visibility problem when it comes to understanding the flow of their money through their firm and what's actually left over. So today, we remove the blur. This is not accounting theory. This is not tax strategy. It's a P&L structured to actually give you clarity. Most law firm owners, if they review the previous month's P&L, they feel something. Sometimes they might feel relief, sometimes maybe anxiety, but sometimes it's just discomfort. And this discomfort, it leaves something harder to name: a vague, uneasy unsettledness, a lack of peace of mind. Not because the business is failing, but because things feel unclear. When types of income are lumped on the P&L, when expenses are lumped, you can't see clearly. It's hard for your nervous system to find peace of mind. Money flowing out of your firm is not the problem. Money is supposed to move. If your P&L doesn't clearly show what flowed in, what flowed out, and what remained, you are leading, you are operating without clarity. And so that is what today is about. Three things should be obvious on your P&L: money flowing in, money flowing out, and money remaining. And if any of those is blurred, you don't just lose insight, you lose the ability to operate from facts. Feelings without facts does not a healthy firm make. Now let's break each one down. All right, money flowing in. Income should reflect the value your firm actually created and you got paid for. If your income section is a single line labeled income, you technically have data, but you don't have visibility. One number doesn't tell you what's contributing. And when you don't know what's contributing to your income, you're operating on assumptions. Here's a question worth asking: how does your income break down? Some firms can actually answer that directly from their P&L, income broken out by practice area or service lines or fee types even. Others get that picture from their case management software instead. Either way, the question needs an answer you can actually see, not just a hunch or gut feeling or a general sense. But I encourage you to have your income section set up to tell you something. At a minimum, just more than one line. Legal fees earned as its own line, and then maybe consultations income as a separate line if you charge for those. If you have a mix of billing types, hourly and flat fee, for example, you can break those out into lines. Any segmentation that makes sense in your world and is informative to you is better than just one lump number. When owners finally see their income broken down, something shifts. Suddenly, there are specific questions to ask, things to look at more closely. The P&L stops being a number you receive and starts being a tool that creates insight. And that's what this section is for. It shouldn't just tell you how much came in. It should tell you something about how. Okay, now let's talk about money flowing out. Just as cash flows into the business, cash also flows out, and that is healthy. Expenses in a business are important. Payroll, marketing, technology, insurance, rent, these are the costs of running a real business. And the goal is to see where your money is going. And the problem is when expenses are categorized too broadly, it hides visibility. There's not enough detail to understand where the money went. Let's talk about paying your people. For most law firms, a significant percentage of revenue goes towards paying your people. And if payroll is a single line item on your P&L, you are missing most of the story. At minimum, payroll should be broken down into its core components: wages, employer taxes, bonuses, 401k, employer contributions, reimbursements. There may be other things that are specific to you and your firm, but structuring your payroll section in a way that shows you how money is flowing out towards your team. Some firms break down payroll even further out by position type: attorney payroll, paralegal payroll, assistant payroll, administrative payroll, with each of those showing its own breakdown of wages, taxes, employer contributions. Some smaller firms track it by team member, which provides even more granular visibility, and that can be helpful. But as you grow, tracking by individual is likely not a decision you'll stick with. You'll have too many names across your P&L that position level detail becomes more practical if you're used to seeing team member by team member. Whatever level of detail you use, you should be able to look at your payroll section and know how much are we paying in wages, how much are we paying in employer taxes, what's going towards benefits, etc. That's understanding one of your largest expense categories, period. And then there's owner compensation, which deserves its own line. If you pay yourself a salary, that W-2 income is a real business expense and belongs on the P&L as officer compensation or owner compensation, separate from the rest of the payroll. That's visibility worth having. Contractors and freelancers belong here too. If someone is doing internal firm work, a contract attorney, a freelance paralegal, a contractor even for administrative work, they belong under the people section, not buried in a general expense or miscellaneous or contractor line item that's way outside of people. You can have single contractors line at a minimum, but make sure it's in the people section. But you can also break it out by individual if you want more granularity. If you're paying someone to do work inside of your firm, it should be visible here. A note about professional services. So bookkeepers, lawyers that you hire to help you navigate something for your firm, outside consultants to help you work on the firm. Those belong under a professional services line item separate from the people section. And the way to think about it, the people section is for anyone doing work inside the firm, contributing to cases, supporting your team, helping run daily operations, whether they're a W-2 employee or contractor. Professional services is for outside experts you bring in to help manage or advise the business itself. Now, there's some other expense categories worth seeing clearly as well. So marketing, it deserves its own line item, no matter what you call it. Advertising, promotion is sometimes the way that I see. The name matters less than the fact that it exists and you can see it. Even when you're not spending much in terms of marketing, have a line. And when you start investing more, break out that line into its subcomponents like ad spend, SEO, events and sponsorships, whatever makes sense for you in your world. But give yourself more visibility if you're really investing in that area. When marketing is lumped into general expenses, it hides. It never gets scrutinized. And at points in your business journey, when marketing deserves real attention, a lumped line is not going to prompt any thinking. If you're spending there, you need visibility, not hunches. You may know what you're paying one vendor, but why carry that in your head? This document should provide clarity when you look at it. Software deserves its own line item as well, because it stacks up. When it's buried in another line, you lose visibility. And part of the value of visibility is that it prompts the right questions. If you don't understand why you're spending that much in a particular category, in a particular line item, it prompts you to go look. Are there renewals happening that you're not using? Are there subscriptions that you forgot about that are being renewed? But if it's hidden in a general line item, it won't be useful to you. It'll never ping you to look further. Something worth naming plainly. A lot of what we're talking about here doesn't matter for tax purposes. Your accountant can file your return with some generality in this P&L. But this P&L is not just a document useful for taxes. It's a tool for you as an owner to surface insights and drive behavior that benefits your business's health. So build your P&L accordingly, structure it accordingly. Next thing that comes to mind that I should share with you that you could consider breaking out: insurance as its own section. Malpractice, general liability, health insurance. You can also put health insurance in the people section since it is people cost. There are typically a few to several insurances that are paid for, and you could put those in one section. Having them organized makes it easy to see the full cost of insurance at a glance and to plan as coverage needs change. Professional services, bookkeepers, outside lawyers that help you navigate things for your firm, consultants doing external work. And if you're paying someone to help care for the business from the outside, it should live here. And you can also break these down by vendor as well. All right, now let's talk about the miscellaneous trap. If you have a miscellaneous expense line, which, it's okay to have that line, but if it's more than a few $100s a month, that's a signal that the structure of your P&L needs work. This is where visibility goes to die. The miscellaneous or general category is often where everything that doesn't have a proper home on your current P&L lands. There's no insight to be had. So before we move to the part of the podcast where we're going to talk about the money left over and profit, there's a couple things worth saying. You should be receiving financial reports every month from your bookkeeper. If that's not happening, fix it immediately. And it's not just about getting the reports, it's about when you get them. So getting your P&L on the 20th of the following month is too late. The further you get from the prior month, the harder it is to recall what happened. Question marks multiply, context fades, you can't remember what was going on, and it's just a bad practice as a business owner. I have had conversations with owners on the 16th or 17th of a month who cannot tell me what they made last month in their business because they haven't gotten their statements yet. Now, listen, you shouldn't need a statement to have a reasonably clear picture of last month's income, but you should absolutely have your full P&L well before mid-month. The most organized clients that I work with get their reports by the 10th, with some as early as the 5th, which is early. But by the 20th, it's just not acceptable, and it doesn't need to be that way. Now, if you are the barrier, if your bookkeeper is waiting on you to answer questions and you're slow to respond, own it and fix it. But if your bookkeeper simply can't deliver reports with a reasonable window after the month end, it's a signal. A good company that's organized internally, they have good processes, they can get you financials early in the month. And as an owner, you should have quick, reliable access to last month's numbers. And one more thing, if your bookkeeper has resistance to getting more detailed on your P&L, if they're dragging their feet on structuring it the way you need, switch bookkeepers. Don't mess around with that. They absolutely know how to do it. It takes a little effort up front to restructure things, but it's not a big deal. And if someone is acting like it's a big deal, that's your sign to find someone else. Because I see our clients' P&Ls, I know some bookkeepers who have a practice of structuring P&Ls very well. Silver Peaks Accounting is one, Core Solutions Group is another, and Paul Carlson of Law Velocity is another. I have a few clients also who use someone locally to them, and they do a great job as well. This is definitely possible, so don't waste much time convincing a bookkeeper to provide smarter structure to your P&L. Another thing worth noting, owner distributions don't belong on the P&L. They are equity draws. The P&L should show performance, what the business generated, not what you chose to take out. So that distinction keeps the picture clean. So money flows in, money flows out, and there should be money left. That's your operating profit. Profit margin is a strong indicator of how healthy your business actually is. And there's no perfect number, but there are ranges that signal health and ranges that signal something that needs attention. Some of the firms I begin working with have profit margins very low. Let's just say, for using an example, 2%. And that's not a catastrophe, but it is a starting point. And the work is to understand what is driving that number and to make decisions that move it in the right direction, not in one jump, but incrementally. Now, if you find yourself in that position where your profit margin is very low, do not default to slashing expenses. It's tempting. Occasionally, it's the right move, but it's rarely the whole answer. And the firms I work with are far more often under-earning than they are overspending. They're paying for the infrastructure to produce, but what's actually coming in is not keeping pace. There should be more coming in for what they're paying to be produced inside of the firm. So slashing expenses without addressing the revenue side, it's a short-sighted fix. What I like to see for most firms is a profit margin between 30 to 40%. Some firms, depending on the practice area and their structure, they may sit more comfortably between 20 and 30%. In my experience, 20% is a minimum baseline that I want to get a firm up to, a floor. Then from there, we can build on that. There's almost always low-hanging fruit, decisions and adjustments that can meaningfully move the margin early. Capture those first. Once you've taken care of the obvious gains, the next improvements take more time and more effort. It's almost like losing weight. For someone who has 40 pounds to lose, the first 25 pounds usually come off faster and easier than the last 10. It's the same idea that can apply to a profit margin. The goal isn't to hit a perfect number. The goal is to see very clearly where you are, understand why, and find the next step that moves you meaningfully closer to where you want to be. Now, let's talk about something specific to law firms and something I see handled poorly for many firms' P&Ls that I look at when I first start working with someone. I notice these things. Advanced client costs and reimbursable expenses. Advanced client costs, meaning money that your firm fronts on behalf of a client. Filing fees, expert witness fees, medical records, process servers. You're paying these costs up front, expecting to be paid back. It is essentially a loan. Reimbursable expense income is the money that comes back to you, the repayment from the client that you fronted. Technically, both should live on the balance sheet, not the P&L. I learned this first from Claudia Reverman, a CPA and a law firm owner. She covered this topic in detail on episode 206. We'll link that in the show notes. So if you're interested in more of a deep dive there, you can go listen to that. When you front money for a client, it's recorded as an asset, a receivable. And when the client pays you back, it clears the receivable. It never touches the P&L because it was never firm income or a firm expense. That said, most firms have it on the P&L. I see it constantly. If that's how your books are set up, I am not here to shame your bookkeeper. This is a legal specific nuance that gets handled this way often. One thing to note, though, we have a client that's using Clio accounting. It's a newer Clio product. And I noticed when we were looking at their P&Ls that the advanced client costs were on there. And I thought they were just hidden in the P&L in an irresponsible way. Come to find out, Clio accounting actually, it doesn't touch the P&L. It's all on the balance sheet, as it should be. So bravo, Clio. If advanced client costs and reimbursements are running through your P&L, here is what clean looks like. In the income section, you need at least one dedicated line item labeled something like reimbursable expense income. This is where you record the repayments, the money that came in from your clients to cover what you fronted. It is not earned income. It's not a legal fee. It is not revenue from a practice area. It is a repayment to you. It needs its own line item so that it's completely visible and clearly not mixed in with the fees that your firm actually generated and earned. In the expense section, you need a dedicated line for the money that went out on behalf of the clients that month. If your P&L has a COGS section, cost of goods sold section, that's generally a good home for it and often where I find it on a P&L. If you don't have a COGS section, just make sure it has its own clearly labeled line in your expense section, not buried in miscellaneous, not lumped with anything else. With both in place, you can reconcile easily. You can see exactly what went out and what came back in. Sometimes what I see is that the expense line exists. Advanced client costs is clearly there. But in the income section, everything's just lumped together. So there's one line item, legal fees, consult fees, reimbursements. It's all just in one income line. You can see what went out, but you have no way to identify specifically the repayments. You cannot reconcile on a P&L set up that way. It's careless, and once you know better, you can do better. Once you know better, there's no reason to leave it that way. So work towards splitting it out clearly. One note for certain kinds of firms, like personal injury firms, you may not always get 100% of your advanced client costs back. If you advance costs on a case and ultimately decide not to take the case, or you lose the case and you cannot recover those costs, that money isn't coming back. When the expectation of reimbursement is gone, those costs should be written off and moved from the balance sheet, if you're doing this technically the right way, moved from the balance sheet to the P&L and recorded as a real operating expense. So oftentimes that line item would be called case cost write-off or unreimbursed case costs. There can be nuance here, so make sure you involve your bookkeeper, your accountant. These are just general guidelines for visibility, not a substitute for advice tailored to your situation. Sync up with the people who can help get this sorted in the most appropriate way for your firm, your bookkeeper, your accountant, maybe the person in your practice who knows the most about your practice management software. That can be part of connecting the dots, but don't let it fly under the radar. Here is what I want you to walk away with. Your P&L should be a tool for you. And if it isn't structured to show you clearly what came in, what went out, and what remained, it isn't doing its job. Every section we covered today has the same purpose: visibility. Not because the numbers need to be perfect, not because you need to hit some ideal profit margin overnight, but because you cannot lead strategically from a blurred picture. When income is broken out in a way that actually reflects how your firm operates, you stop guessing about where your money came from. You start seeing patterns, you start seeing trends. And when expenses are organized with real structure, payroll with detail, insurance grouped properly, software visible, contractors where they belong, marketing spend clearly showing, you stop carrying the business in your head and you start seeing it on the page. When advanced client cost and reimbursable expense income are clearly labeled and separated, whether on your balance sheet or on your P&L, actual firm performance is reflected, not a mix of what you earned and what you floated on behalf of clients. When profit margin is visible and you can understand where you are, you can make real decisions about where to go, not just react to discomfort. And remember, progress, not perfection. Start with the biggest gaps. Talk to your bookkeeper, request your reports early, get visibility one section at a time, because truly, when the picture becomes clear, it's easier to begin the real work of strengthening the business.
Before you go, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like to hear more on this topic, let us know in the comments below. Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Owner Podcast. If you're ready to get clearer on your vision, data, and mindset, then head over to velocitywork.com where you can plug in to quarterly strategic planning with accountability and coaching in between. This is the work that creates velocity.